the title of the show tonight is Denying the Odds and Positioning Yourself for the Give Back. Can you share with the audience what that means to you and how did you get to where you are today?
Okay, so I grew up in Roxbury, Grove Hall area, and I grew up fatherless and motherless, and I grew up having to scrounge and fight for, you know, just simple things that normal kids didn't have at my age. You know, I grew up in a community where, you know, it was either sink or swim, and you either got into a gang or you were, you know, beat up every day. But I wasn't really the type of kid that, you know, wanted to be, you know, involved in any criminal activity, even though it was something that was, you know, in my household. I wanted to go to school and, you know, get A's and B's and continue, you know, to do something better with myself.
Okay, thank you. Now, you mentioned being motherless and fatherless. Can you share with the audience a little more about that?
Well, I mean, I grew up where, you know, the 70s where, you know, there was a lot of prostitution, a lot of things that were going on for, you know, African Americans that, you know, we had to get along, they had to get along to survive, where, you know, my parents were, you know, in a lifestyle. You know, I grew up in a household where, you know, there was activity going on. I never met my mom and I never met my father, but I was raised by a family that was in a criminal activity, and, you know, growing up in a household, I seen certain things that I wasn't supposed to see at that age.
Okay. Now, you said that you didn't know your mom and your dad, and let's touch on that a little bit if you don't mind, because like I always say, things that we have gone through or things that we are going through, we are not the only ones. I shared with you, and you were very instrumental with me processing and getting through my own personal situation, which I learned some things about my birth that I didn't know. And knowing that you had gone through, you know, similar situation, I reached out to you, and one of the things that you said to me, that I was not what was on that birth certificate. So, like I said, you know, we are not the only one that has experienced something like that. So if you could talk about that a little more.
Well, I mean, growing up, it was like, I felt like I was, you know, different. I felt like that, you know, other kids that I grew up with, they had their mother or they had their father. Me, I didn't have that. I felt like I was, you know, somewhat, you know, alienated or different. So, you know, the people that raised me, it was like, I didn't feel that they showed me no love, because I was longing for love from my biological mother. And, you know, studies show that, you know, kids, you know, long for that type of relationship with their parents, and when they don't get it, they, you know, go down certain paths. And I just happened to be one of those kids that went down that path.
Right. Now, I know for myself, I was angry, disappointed. Did you feel any of that?
Definitely. I acted out. I believe that, you know, when children are acting out, they're just telling you something that's going on in them or going on within their household. So I definitely acted out. I, you know, stole. I, you know, lied. I, you know, messed around with, you know, girls at a young age that I wasn't supposed to be messing around with. I mean, I wasn't messing around with young girls, but I was, you know, involved in type of sexual activity too young, because I had my own situation that I dealt with at a young age.
So, fast forward to dealing with that. Did you feel the need to forgive? Were you able to, was it easy to forgive?
Forgive who?
Well, you know, not knowing my situation, I blame my mom. And I had to, you know, learn to forgive her. And I'm, you know, asking, were you able to do that, and what was that process like?
No, I didn't really forgive my mom until I was 38 years old. And then I was in the process of being in treatment therapy. So for so many years, I went through my life angry at a woman I never met, and I was trying to emulate the behavior of a man I never met. And so I was, you know, all over the place as a child.
Okay.
And a teenager.
So you definitely feel that therapy helps?
Oh yes, definitely. Therapy is huge.
Because, you know, a lot of people in our culture feel like therapy is taboo. And I try to educate our people, you know, not only just our people, people in general, that there's nothing wrong with therapy, and it's a good source to help you overcome trauma that you've dealt with, you know, in your life.
Right.
Now, so fast forward to, let's talk about the process. You talked about being young, different behaviors and stuff that you were being involved with that, you know, led you down a certain path. When did you have that wake-up call, and what did that look like?
I mean, my wake-up call was when I think I was 38 years old. You know, I ran the streets. I did all type of, you know, criminal activities. You know, I tore my community down by poisoning, you know, my people with, you know, the narcotics that I was selling. I was a manipulator. I was a liar. You know, I was watching the movie Malcolm X last night, and, you know, I can kind of like relate to, you know, his transformation, because I was him and he was me. You know, and to the point where, you know, I was lost mentally. I was, you know, just, you know, thought that I was either going to die in jail or die, you know, by the hands of somebody else.
Okay. Now, you talked about jail. How long were you in jail?
I did 4 different bits or bids, so for a total of about 9 to 10 years.
Okay.
And then, you know, I was still in jail, you know, mentally, and I was still on paper somehow, because even though you get out of jail, you're still somewhat on, you know, paper, where you're on parole or probation.
Okay. Now, let's talk about that a little more. You said that you were still in jail mentally.
Right.
Can you explain what you mean about that?
I mean, I just wasn't, you know, I didn't have, you know, knowledge of myself. I didn't know who I was. I thought that, you know, I was destined to be somebody that, you know, traditionally or generationally, I thought, because my parents, my grandparents, they were all into, you know, criminal lifestyles. So I felt that, you know, I was following, you know, down that road. So when I say I was mentally, you know, in jail, I just thought that, you know, selling drugs and, you know, using drugs and, you know, doing crime to get by and to, you know, as my means of income was the way to go.
Okay. Now, do you feel, because I see this a lot, do you feel that, well, why did you feel the need to, you know, join, I don't want to say a gang, but, you know, associate yourself with certain type of behaviors and people that conducted the same behaviors that you were doing?
I think I was attracted to that because, I mean, you got to be careful that, you know, what you expose your children to, because, you know, I was exposed to a lot of, you know, negativity in the household, and I was always told that my father was this, you know, vainglorious type hustler, and, you know, he had all these women and money and stuff like that. So I wanted to live up to that. I wanted to be just like him. So I feel like it was generational with me, that, you know, I felt like I needed to follow in, you know, my family's footsteps.
Okay. Now, you said it was generational, and I know you have 2 sons and a daughter of your own. How did you break that cycle of that generational curse, if you will?
By working on myself and, you know, finding another means of income, and, you know, associating myself with positive people, putting positive people around me. I felt that I couldn't continue to connect myself with the underworld, as you may call it, because if I felt that I needed to, you know, continue to be there, then I had 1 foot in the underworld and 1 foot in the legit world. And I just felt that that wasn't going to work.
So let's talk about some of the things you did to overcome that lifestyle and things that you are doing now.
The first thing I did was I worked on myself.
Mm-hmm.
I, you know, sat down for a minute and found out who I was as a person, and, you know, what were some of my obstacles that I needed to overcome to become a better person. That's the first thing I did.
Okay. Can you share with the audience some of those obstacles?
Just, you know, like I said earlier, you know, using drugs, selling drugs, and, you know, just committing, you know, criminal activities as a means of income. That was, you know, my sole purpose in life.
Okay. Now, I've heard plenty of people say that the reason why they choose to sell drugs or to be in that life is because there are no jobs. If there are jobs, there's not enough money to take care of their family. What do you have to say to that?
Some people think that, you know, it's a choice on why people sell drugs. I think that some people sell drugs out of desperation to feed their families, you know, because, you know, like, it's not like we can go get a, you know, a job that's going to be able to, you know, afford the comfortability that we need to have our families in. So, you know, if you've ever been in that criminal lifestyle, it's kind of hard to go and get a 9-to-5 because you're so accustomed to a certain lifestyle. So you got to kind of like do a whole 180 and change your whole, you know, concept of, you know, living and, you know, the way you know, things are going that once you had that you can't do anymore.
Okay. So how easy was that for you, or how difficult was it for you to do it?
Like I said, I sat down for 18 months, so it was, you know, I think I had a little cushion where I was able to do that. So I think it was a little bit more easy for me because, you know, I had the support from my family at the time, and I was just going through my process, and, you know, I was able to see some things that I couldn't see if I would have been out there ripping and running.
Okay. Now, when you said you were sat down for 18 months, do you mean that you were incarcerated for that time, or?
No, I was in the treatment process.
Okay.
My treatment process.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what did that look like?
You know, I was in a program where, you know, they build you, we walk in as a baby and they build you up to, you know, become a man. You know, I learned a lot of things about myself in this program where I didn't know, you know, like something as, you know, having patience or, you know, being able to have a conversation. You know, I didn't know how to do these things when I was out there, you know. I knew how to con and jive, but I really never knew how to have a, you know, let's say casual conversation. Just something simple as please and thank you. That was hard for me.
Now, this program, does the program still exist this day, or do we have programs like that?
No, this program is non-existent. The modality is non-existent, and that was a therapeutic community modality where you phase up. You come in as, you know, like they say, an orientee, and you leave out a senior. So it kind of like, you know, tears you down and builds you back up to become a man. And that program really, you know, helped me to see who I was as a person.
Now, do you feel that our community could benefit from programs like that?
Yeah, I believe that, you know, our community could definitely benefit from the therapeutic community. But I think everything now is harm reduction, and, you know, I think it's all about the money right now. There's really no serious help. People are not really, you know, in it for the helping people. It's all about, you know, the money.
It's funny that you mentioned harm reduction. Let's talk about that a little bit. I currently now is working with that model. Something that's very new to me. Is definitely not something that I support 100% because I'm all about recovery. What is your take on harm reduction?
Yeah, harm reduction is kind of like giving that person a crutch to say it's okay to, you know, continue to, you know, indulge in some type of mood or mind-altering substance. I believe that recovery is, you know, just being abstinent and, you know, not having anything in your system. That's true recovery, and continuing to stay in some type of treatment process, whether it's therapy or an IOP. So I think harm reduction is somewhat of a crutch for, you know, substance abuse users to continue to get high. But to each his own. It works for some people. I'm not going to say that it doesn't work. It works for some people, and, you know, but I just don't buy into the whole process.
Well, I'm glad that you said that, because that was going to be my next thing. Some people may beg to differ with you and I in the way that we think or feel about harm reduction, because, you know, some have said that it definitely have helped them get to living a clean and sober life.
Right.
Yeah. But like you said, to each his own.
Yeah, it does work for some people.
Right.
You know, people are able to maintain and, you know, get up and, you know, live a fuller life with, you know, these certain, you know, medications that they're on, you know, And if they weren't on these medications, there's a possibility that they might be, you know, out using and wouldn't be able to live a productive life.
So let's talk about Out for Good.
Out for Good?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
When did you make the decision to be Mr. Out for Good, if you will? And let's talk about that process.
I was sitting down on a couch in a treatment program with someone, and it was actually his idea. He was the one that said, I want to get a treatment center not a treatment center, but I want to get a program that's going to help people when they get out of jail, and I'm going to name it Out for Good. And when he said that, it just stuck with me. It just stuck with me. Okay. And, you know, it was just one of those aha moments. And through my process, I started working, you know, for this, you know, agency that encouraged, you know, people like me to, people of my, you know, background to, you know, go to school and own your own business. And when it was time for me to own my business, I named it Out for Good. Okay. Out of, you know, the conversation I had with this gentleman on this couch years ago.
Okay. Let's talk about your education.
Okay.
Talk about that. Share that with the audience. And the reason why I asked you to share that, because I'm sure there is someone that is watching and have lived a similar life as yours, and probably saying to themselves that, you know, there's no way out. This is all I know. I don't have a trade. May have dropped out of school. So let's talk about that.
Let me see, where do I start? So first and foremost, I received education from, you know, some of my education from the streets. That's where I want to say that some of the real education came from. I got a lot of lived experience for some of the work that I do. But I decided to, you know, when I got out in 2009, I was in this program in South Bay. It was a reentry program. You know, one of the guys that came through the program, one of the guys that worked there, Al Copeland, you know, shout out to Al Copeland. He was a big, you know, part in True C. They're a big part of my, you know, transformation, because when I came through South Bay, these brothers showed me how to, you know, navigate and, you know, put things in order for when I get out, that, you know, I can, you know, go a different way than the way I went before I came in. So, it started with, you know, me building my resume. I was in this program in South Bay where I was on a computer, learning computer skills, desktop publishing. And then I started at Cambridge College for my certificate in substance abuse counseling. And then there was this professor who took a liking to me, and she, you know, was kind of like my mentor. Her name was Colleen Good. And she kind of like told me that I can go further and, you know, roll these credits over into the bachelor's program at Cambridge College. So I took a shot at it, and, you know, I kind of like gravitated towards education. I was thirsty for knowledge, and I got my bachelor's degree. So I said, hey, you know, through different mentors, you know, Seigle Mims and Lauren Roberts, and, you know, Dr. Omar Reed, they were, you know, mentors, you know, telling me to, you know, why stop there? Why stop at, you know, getting your bachelor's, where, you know, you can take it a step further. You know, also Ishmael Williams. These were, you know, instrumental brothers in my life that, you know, continue to, you know, tell me to get higher education, so, you know, I don't have to, you know, work for anyone if I decide when I get, you know, out of school.
So what would you say to someone that's in the audience or watching this? What would you say to them? What steps would you encourage them to take if they had a desire to enrich their life through education and owning their own business?
You know, don't give up. You know, ask the universe for what you want. Put it out there. You know, write it down. You know, believe in, you know, what you want, what you're going after, and you can achieve it. You know, I'm a firm believer of, if you put something out to the universe and you have a strong belief in it, then the universe is going to bring it back to you.
Now, just hearing you share your story with us, you make it seem so easy and so simple. Was there ever any obstacles that you had to face throughout this process, and if so, can you share those?
Yeah, there was some obstacles when I first started this process. I had eight warrants. I was actually on the run, doing this work, and I was, scared to turn myself in. So I kind of like went into this total different role. I didn't dress a certain way because I know if I dressed a certain way, then the police was going to stop me, and if they stopped me, they was going to run my name and find out that I had a warrant. So I decided to dress in shirt and ties, and I never got stopped. Never got stopped by the police, and I had warrants. I was on the run for 3 years. So that was an obstacle, but I was able to, clear those cases up, thanks to the Annie Dugan situation. And, I haven't been locked up since, all praise due to the higher power that I worship.
Yes. Now, let's talk about being on the run, and you said that you changed your attire. What was your attire prior to you deciding to wear this shirt and tie? B hat, just like that you have on there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So but you see, I have it mixed up right now. That's the reason.
Yes,
this is the Russell Simmons CEO type look. But it was just like, normal hood, apparel that, I grew up around Polo, Timbs, stuff like that where, you would attract the police to pull you over.
Yeah, but do you think it's fair because of one's attire that they should be targeted?
Well, it's not fair, but that's what happens a lot in inner city communities. I mean, I was a person that had warrants, and not once did I, get pulled over or while walking down the street, hey, where you going? Because I looked respectful. I had a shirt and tie on. But eventually I got caught, and when I got caught, I, had enough money to, hire an attorney and do what I needed to do.
Okay. Now, would you recommend someone to go on the run?
I'll plead the fifth on that question. I'm not going to answer that.
Okay, all right. Okay. So, Out for Good, what kind of services do Out for Good offer?
We provide, so in 2012 I started, like I said, as a reentry program where I wanted to help people when they got out of jail. Help them find resources so they can, stay out, because I was kind of using myself as a model of Out for Good. So I was going to, provide them with the same resources that helped me continue to stay out for good. But then in 2016, I got my master's degree, and I decided to take it a step further by providing substance use counseling, and amongst other things, CORI consultation, where I can help a person seal their CORI if they've been out for 7 years for a felony and 3 years for misdemeanor.
So now, Out for Good was established and open in what year?
2012.
Okay. And then in 2016, you took it a step further and did the substance abuse?
Yeah, right. 2016. Yeah.
Now, is it just the inner city that you service, or?
No, I mean, I can service anyone that has the proper insurance, or if they feel to pay for co-pay. Just depends on what disorder they have. I can only service patients or clients that have substance use disorders.
Okay. Now, if someone comes to you that may not have substance abuse concerns or issue, but more or less on the mental health side, how do you handle that?
I have to refer out. To a professional that specializes in that, in mental health disorder.
Okay. So you collab with other agencies. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's good to know.
We're trying to do a lot of different things, in the community, with a lot of different, grassroots organizations, trying to partner with people of like minds so we can try to, bring some real serious help to our community and our people.
Now, what has that been looking like? Do you feel that it's been an easy task? Have you encountered challenges, and if so, what are some of these challenges?
Funding is always a challenge.
Okay.
Just having the funding to provide the quality service that we're trying to provide. So that's why I decided to, go a different route with my organization and try to, go the nonprofit route where I can try to see if I can get some different, funding and grants to, bring back and help my community.
Now, becoming nonprofit, can we talk about that process? Have you found that to be easy, or?
No, it's a process.
Okay. Can you share with, because I'm sure that there are people that, have started their own business and probably want some more insight on
it's a process. I mean, I'm in my beginning phases right now, and I'm, picking people's, brains for different ideas on how to, run a successful nonprofit. And one of the things that keeps coming up is, just be, conscious of the finances. I mean, just make sure that you're doing what you say you're going to do with these finances and not, personalize it for your own usage.
Speaking of finances, let's talk about that a bit, because I know you're big on investing.
Yes.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah, that's when I was locked up. I always, read a lot, and I wanted to, invest in, stocks. I was always curious about the stock market, so I felt that I had the ability financially to invest. I started doing some research, and I started investing in different stocks and cryptocurrency.
Okay. Have you ever considered maybe have you provided trainings for an individual that's interested in learning more about stocks and investing?
No, because that's really not my lane. I'm not too knowledgeable. I know just enough to invest, so I wouldn't want to do any trainings on it, because that's not anything that I went to school for, anything like that. I would like to do trainings on my specialty, what I went to school for.
Now, do you have plans? Is that in the works to do trainings and stuff?
Yeah, I just was speaking with someone from an agency earlier that when I was working at this agency called Pyramid Builders, I used to do a lot of their new hire orientee trainings. So I went to this other agency and started doing trainings, and they just called me back up to start doing some, trainings for new hires that come in.
Now, would you also do, or have you considered doing trainings for like the community?
I don't know. I mean, I don't. When you say trainings for the community, what do you mean?
I mean, for people that's within our community that, maybe want to get more knowledge on your expertise, substance abuse. Maybe they have a loved one that, struggles, and I feel that if your family is supporting and you're struggling, that means that the family's struggling too.
Right. Definitely, that's something that goes on when a person is substance using, is that it's not just about them, it's also about people that they're connected to, their family. They also go through some of the battles that they go through.
Hey, welcome back to The Best Is Yet to Come. We do apologize about that. We had some difficulties. The power went out, so we will resume from where we left off at. Mr. Conway was actually explaining his thoughts on why we don't keep our money within our community.
Right, and I just think that we were not educated from the start. I mean, on how to, save or, invest. It seems like, we always want to go out and run and get the latest fashion, and I think that, sometimes if you see someone, they have more value in their outfit than they do in the bank, and that's called backwards hustling. You should definitely have, you should be able to match your outfit. You shouldn't have a $5,000 outfit on and you don't even got $5,000 in the bank. That's backwards hustling.
Can you, for our audience that may not understand what backward hustling actually means, can you talk about that a little more?
Yeah, like it's just, spending and you don't have it to spend. You're, kind of like living hand to mouth. You're you know, living, you got champagne taste, but with Budweiser money.
Okay. Almost as my grandmother would say, robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Right.
Okay. All right.
And I think sometimes it's hard for, you know, some people to save because we're not really getting the money like that, so it's hard to save. But if you could save, it's amazing. If you could save, you know, $5 or $10 from every paycheck and just have the discipline. Sometimes it comes down to discipline. If you have the discipline not to touch it, then, you know, you can have probably a nice little nest egg. But you should at least be saving something from your check every week.
Now, what about that person that may say, my check is not even enough for me to take care of my essentials?
Well, I'm sure they have other luxuries that they can cut back on that, you know, can go into the kitty.
Okay, all right.
And I don't think, you know, sometimes people don't want to cut back because they're so accustomed to, you know, their lifestyle.
Now, you talked about the dollar not staying in our community. What about the community not supporting us not supporting what's in our community? Do you feel that there's enough support between different businesses within our community?
The community where I grew up in, it first started out with, you know, there was African American businesses. We had a thriving African American community. But then something happened in 82, 83. It's this thing called crack cocaine where, you know, a lot of communities, African American communities in America were torn down. And, you know, it was forced, you was either selling it or smoking it. And sometimes a lot of the business owners were, you know, forced to, you know, move out of the community because they was either getting their store broken into or getting robbed because of the people that were using crack.
So is it safe to say that prior to that epidemic that there was more support for the community?
Definitely. I remember when I was younger, I was, you know, go up there and get me a ½ pound of hog head cheese and, you know, $2 worth of bologna and tell Mr. Reese to put it on my tab. And Mr. Reese was a neighborhood, you know, community store. He had a, you know, meat section in the back and he sold, you know, your milk, your average, you know, everyday essentials that you need. And, you know, if you didn't have money, Mr. Reese, you can have a tab. And Mr. Lawson was behind the counter, and he'd put you in the books. So the community supported each other.
Okay. So what do you think that it would take for us to get back to that?
You know, becoming more, you know, conscious, you know, believing that, you know, we can get back to that. I think that we have a mentality that we just gave up and we can never get back to that unity because there's so many other distractions that are put in our communities and in our lives. Like sometimes these things right here, you know, distractions. You know, if you don't have discipline, you could be stuck all day on, you know, Facebook, YouTube, or, you know, that's taking you away from, you know, studying. Right. Know how to be a better person.
Now, one may say, and I've heard this, that that a lot of times we can be like crabs in a bucket. One is trying to rise, you want to snatch them down. Do you see that? Do you feel that? And if so, how do we overcome that? Because that's a great obstacle if that is the case.
I mean, I think that's, you know, they call Massachusetts Boston a crab in a barrel mentality when it comes to certain stuff. People don't want to see people rise and shine. You know, there's really no unity here amongst, you know, certain cultures where there is in other, you know, communities in other states. What I think it's going to take to overcome that, you know, just want for your brother what you want for yourself. Okay. You know. Okay. Basically.
But how do one get to that point though, when it's so embedded in a lot of us that the only way to survive or get to the top, you step on someone else to get there?
I don't think that's embedded in everybody. I think there's some good people out there that will really help you. And you know, I think somebody said it. Gandhi changed. If you want to change the world, it starts with yourself. Right. So you have to be able to, you know, put out what you want back. You know, you can't really worry about everybody else. You got to worry about, like, if you're able to help someone, you help them, and hopefully they can pay it forward and help someone else.
Okay. No, I didn't say everyone. I was just saying, there are enough people that feel that way. I had a guest on maybe 2 shows ago, and I know you all do a lot of collabing and stuff. Are there other, and that's shout out to Joseph from Yard Time Entertainment. Are there other smaller agencies that you would like to mention that you collaborate in some of the things that you all are doing?
Yeah, I like to collab with, people of like minds that's doing, or headed in some of the directions that I'm headed in, that has that, same energy to, help the community. I got, something that I'm putting together as far as, where I'm, giving back to the community by sharing information on this podcast that I'm starting up, where I'm bringing on people of the community, entrepreneurs that are giving back to their community. So collaboration, I collaborate with, people that, have certain interests. Yard Time Entertainment is one of them, Crossroads Counseling, New Beginnings Reentry. These are all small agencies that, have the same shared vision as Out for Good.
Okay. All right. What are some things that you all are doing?
Starting at a, grassroots level and trying to, bring reentry to the forefront, because, reentry is something that's, I think is misunderstood. I don't think that people coming out of jail have the proper resources that they need to, break recidivism. I think that, there's still a lot of barriers. And one of the barriers that we're working on is something simple as getting the person coming out of jail something simple as an ID. We see that, a lot of these people that are getting out of jail are bumping into these barriers of getting something simple as an ID. So that's some of the things we're working on, is trying to change some type of policies and procedures within the DOC and within the RMV that can say, hey, when this person gets out, this person can simply take a piece of paper down to the RMV and say, hey, I need my ID.
It's funny that you say that, because that's some of the struggles that we see. I work currently right now with the homeless population, and there have been some guidelines put in place that they are not necessarily required to bring, the typical documentation that's needed to get their IDs. A lot of times people don't have the funds, or they don't even know where to begin to first get a birth certificate, because in order to get that ID, a lot of time it's required that you have a birth certificate. And that has definitely been a struggle for a lot of people to obtain that. So I agree with you when you say, providing a more simpler way so that people can get that ID, because without that ID, a lot of things you can't do.
Definitely. There was one guy on there talking about that, it's kind of somewhat illegal to not, have an ID. So if it's illegal to not have an ID, why would you be letting someone out and not providing them with the means to get an ID? Right. So it's kind of like you're already setting them back to come back to jail. Right. Which, I think the system is designed anyway for recidivism. They put all these obstacles in place for when we get out. It's kind of like when a person gets out of jail, they're doing a whole nother sentence, because they can't get housing, they can't, get the necessary financial backing to support their family.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's why there are agencies like Out for Good.
Right.
Right. Now let's talk about this podcast that you just mentioned. When will you be starting that, and tell us a little more of what we can expect?
Well, the podcast is called The Give Back, and it's just basically a platform similar to this, where I'm talking with, someone on my show about what are they doing in the community as far as, giving back, and allowing them a platform to showcase, their business and what they're doing. Talk about, some of the things that, they're doing in the community to, promote change.
Okay. What would you like to see more of in the community?
What would I like to see more in the community? I would like to see less violence. I would like to see definitely less violence. I would like to see a bunch of brothers from, you know, similar backgrounds as mine getting together, you know, and just putting on some type of forum and, you know, bringing these young kids in, all the shot callers from these different, you know, hotspot neighborhoods, and talking to them about our experiences and the road that they're going down is going to lead them, you know, in a federal cell or in someone's graveyard.
Okay. Now, do you, I'm going to come back to that. Do you go around to different schools and stuff and speaking to youth there? Or is that something that you were working on, or do you have any desire to do that?
I definitely have a desire to do it. I did it at one time when I was with Pyramid Builders, but right now my focus is, you know, on substance abuse. But I would definitely like to circle back and, you know, come back into the Boston Public Schools or any school that would have, you know, us in there to provide that type of education to the youth.
All right. What have you faced any barriers with that, or you just took a break from doing it because, like you said, you're focusing on?
Yeah, I'm focusing on I'm in another lane right now.
Okay. All right. Now, would you have any information for someone that was interested and had the time, you know, to do that? How would they navigate through the system in order to get something like that in place to do?
As far as what?
Going into the different schools.
Oh, I mean, when I was going into the schools, I was going in through an agency. Okay. And I was going in to see a identified client. Oh, I mean, okay. So I really couldn't speak to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, let's back up here. You mentioned, I don't want to put you on the spot, you mentioned that you would like to create a forum that different people, like-minded, like you,
similar backgrounds,
right? Similar backgrounds, get together and to speak to the youth. Mm-hmm. Now, if you were presented with the opportunity to do that on a smaller scale, would you be open to doing that?
Yes, I mean, definitely. I would definitely like to speak to, you know, at-risk youth. I was invited to do that at Somerville High School through BAM. BAM is the agency, stands for Becoming a Man. Oh, okay. So I was able to, you know, do that. You know, the director of that agency called on me to come speak in front of a bunch of youth from Somerville, you know, with a couple more people that, you know, have similar backgrounds. So I was, you know, it was a pleasure to do that. And he was telling me that there was some other stuff coming down the line. So, yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well, you all heard it first here on The Best Is Yet to Come. Now, let me say this to you. I'm going to be out in a couple of weeks, and I have two other people, one that you know, have agreed to fill in for me on a panel. Is that something that you would be interested in doing?
I don't know. I would need to know more about it. Okay. This is the first thing I'm hearing about it. I mean, I don't know. I would need to know more about it.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. We have maybe 4 more minutes before it's time to wrap this up.
4 minutes?
Yes.
Right.
So, for the last few weeks, I've been going over some, trying to adhere to the time. Is there anything that you, parting words, that you would like to leave with our audience before we wrap this up?
Out for Good Inc. can be reached. You can check us out, our website, as you can see on the monitor, www.outforgoodinc.com. We're working on a few things as far as putting a donation page and a GoFundMe page on our website for anyone that, you know, wants to donate and, you know, believes in our vision. We got a couple of things we're doing as far as our nonprofit. One of the things we're going to try to do is bring some groups to our community as far as, you know, substance abuse groups, you know, reentry groups, and learning how to, you know, simply, you know, get out and stay out. Okay. And it changes in the thinking, not the doing.
Okay. Well, once again, you have been in tune to The best is yet to come, and we sincerely thank our guest tonight, Mr. Conway, and he provided you with his information. And I also, before wrapping this up, I truly want to thank my producer who's behind the scene. I mean, he poured so much into my show and just supported me and helping me, so I just want to say thank you to him. Thank you, Eve. And once again, you have been in tune to The Best Is Yet to Come. In closing, I bid you peace, love, and blessing always. And remember, the best is yet to come.